I met Rodney very recently, actually, and I'm so glad I did. I was terribly excited when I found out that his granddaughter dances with my son. There you go. And I was very excited because he wrote 2 incredible books, The Orchestral Violinist, Volume 1, Volume 2. And I used these. I think my dad got them for me when I started college. And he said to me, if you want to work in an orchestra, which I desperately did, you'll come a cropper if you just turn up to the gig and you don't know what you're doing. And these brilliant books have been written by Rodney, which talk you through the really difficult excerpts and what you'll probably do wrong and what, you know, how to play them well. And Rodney, they were amazing, these books. They saved my bacon on so many occasions. They were amazing. So those of you who don't know, Rodney were you the LPO's youngest leader, Rodney?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, age of 23?
Yes.
Wow, right. So he was, yes. And before that, you'd co-led the LSO.
I was co-leader of the LSO. I was 21.
Yeah. He then went on to America and led the New York Philharmonic. And then finally, thank goodness, he came back to Britain and he led the BBC Symphony Orchestra. He's been a professor of violin at the Royal College of Music, the Royal Academy now, and he's been an international chamber musician, and he's played solos everywhere. I mean, it's truly a legend in the room. Thank you very much, Rodney, for joining us. But I think what would be great to talk about today are some of the incredible people you have worked with. Because really, I didn't quite believe it when you first sent me the list. I mean, on that list was Stravinsky.
Yes.
I mean, you met him. I mean, let's start right back. So that was when you were where, in New York?
I would no, that was here. First time I saw him was actually on the 50th anniversary of the debut of the first performance of the Rite of Spring with Monteur. And we did a concert of the Rite of Spring to celebrate that 50th anniversary, and it was with Monteur conducting. And so Stravinsky in the rehearsals was sitting between Monteur and the first stand. So, I mean, you know, to have Stravinsky sat there and you're working with Monteur, it was just the most wonderful thing. He didn't say very much because, you know, for Monteur, who made it very, very tiny gestures and was just, you know, he was just an adorable old guy. I mean, he was 86 or 87, but that was an amazing performance because we were playing for Stravinsky. He was there.
I mean, we were talking just before everybody else joined us just now about the Rite of Spring and how terrifying it can be. But I mean, you know, you say it was wonderful to have him there. I would have been bricking it if I'd had Stravinsky sitting listening to me count. Was there an element of fear there at all, Rodney?
You know, actually, I think when I was young, I didn't think I knew what fear was. That happens later. That happens when you somehow, you know, after 30, you start to think about, wait, this is hard. But I think when you're young, like all the academy students and everything, you mustn't fear anything. You must just go and work and deal with every situation, because, you know, as you have a long career to deal with, and all the students that I have seen, as long as they're practicing crazy good, and as long as they're giving 100% in every orchestral situation, be it at the, I don't know, be it in a church with an amateur orchestra, be it with a orchestra that you study with, like at the RAM or at the college or one of those places, you have to give 100%, otherwise it interferes with your violin playing. You must. And because also you must get to love the literature. I mean, you know, there's no point in being able to play Tchaikovsky's Violin Concerto like David Oistrakh if you fake your way through the Fourth Symphony. It's just not on. You've got to be able to think, you know what, I could stand up and play this. Because I know of the 3,000 auditions, and that's a lot of auditions that I listened to in my 30 years as a leader of orchestras. You know, one looks for sound and rhythm, beautiful sound, beautiful rhythm. So when you practice your orchestral excerpts and so on, I think that you have to deal with them as you would a beautiful melody with great rhythm, and work with metronomes until the metronome is actually inside of you. And so you always feel a great pulse. So don't ever, and you know, if you never sit back in the chair, that's the worst. I mean, you can't play the fiddle like that. You can't. So sit, get comfy at the edge of it, and as if you're standing and it's your concert. And, you know, enjoy your rehearsals and learn something. Don't do bad habits. Don't do bad habits. They matter.
We spoke actually about how, a few days ago, about how you had done a year and a half co-leading the LSO and then had left to go and practice. And I was quite surprised to hear this because obviously you're known so globally as such an accomplished leader. And it had never occurred to me that you wouldn't feel comfortable playing in an orchestra. But perhaps you could share with us how you felt when you first started doing orchestra, because you hadn't particularly done orchestra before that.
Well, when I first started.
Yeah. Okay,
well, strange enough, well, fortunately enough, the first piece that when I was leader of the LSO first time was Brahms 4. And I didn't really know it that well. In fact, I actually hadn't played it. So I practiced it. So I was in fairly good shape with the notes. But when I came to rehearsal, and I really didn't know about bowings and all of those things. I was so raw, but I was a bit kind of outrageous. So I started to change bowings and things because it suited me. And that was learning curve number 1. Because, you know, then I see everybody totally, what's he changing? These bowings are coming from Monteur. And anyway, I learned not to do it unless it's necessary, or unless conductor, if you respect enough, you will change for certain bowings in order to achieve whatever sound he wants. But we have to be careful with sound because we have a little bit of a problem in that we have a concept of what a piano or pianissimo or mezzo piano actually represents when we see it in an orchestral part. If we see piano written in Mendelssohn's Violin Concerto, we have no problem. We know what it's softer. It's just not loud. Piano is not loud. It's not soft. It's just nice or whatever. But when you see it in an orchestral part, you begin to kind of not connect with the voice of the instrument. So you're on the surface of the string, and that actually that sends out the wrong message in many respects to the bow arm, because if we do that funny thing that we think you should do in the orchestra, this like pianissimo on like 2 hairs of the bow, we start in a nice position at the heel, and then suddenly you think, well, wait, my God, where do I pronate now? So you're going like this, and you're getting softer and softer, and you think, no, I've got to get into the index finger because I've got to come here. And instead you stay here. Now you start to go around the corner, and the bow feels like jelly because you're not taught to do this bowing. It's not your bow arm. So fortunately, I missed this because I was in this professional orchestras almost immediately and early. So I learned that there is a sound, a piano sound, where the string vibrates a little bit and you can do your beautiful bowing. Because this makes you feel very uncomfortable, even can make you feel nervous, this wrong positions and this holding this thread. So I think that, you know, we can learn many, many, many things, and particularly how to blend, because we all have got different sounds. It doesn't matter how the section has blended. That's a transmission of thought between perhaps conductor or the music you love, or Mozart or Beethoven or God knows what. That's a transmission of thought that everybody catches that sound or that feeling, because we all have got a different vibrato. Some have got different violins. Some have got really good fiddles, some have got not so good fiddles. So there is a way of blending, and that is also a big, big art.
And so what advice would you give to people who are going out into profession now that would like to be principal player, a concertmaster?
Yeah.
What would you say to them about how to get a section to play together, blended, but on the edge of their seats, you know,
Yeah.
giving as much as the leader's giving, not leaving it all to the front and just coasting at the back?
Yeah.
How can you positively encourage them to do that without sort of getting heavy and nasty and accusing them of not pulling their weight?
Well, first of all, you have got to be in a good violinistic position. You must be. In order to play, I mean, I can honestly say that in 30 years of doing that, I mean, I kind of finished with orchestras already by the time I was 52 or something, or 51. But if you sit in a concert position, you start to blend. You will start to blend because this is like playing quartet suddenly. If you sit back and do all of that stuff, you know, you're back in the chair, you're not going to blend. There's no way you can make a halfway decent sound. And actually, you're not going to be accepted into a top orchestra unless you're a really good fiddle player.
Yeah.
You know, like all of the fiddle players in Philadelphia or London Symphony or whatever, they're really good. I mean, I was on quite a few international jury competitions, in fact, quite a lot, too many. But of all the competitions that I've ever been in that was really competitive were an audition for the New York Philharmonic. That was like, you can't believe of the people who would turn up. But it wasn't always the one who could play Paganini concerto like Iron Man. Wasn't always him that won. It was the one with a great sound, with a sound that would contribute to the section, and a rhythm, pulse, have to have it. So in the prepared pieces, I never took much notice personally of sight reading. Didn't bother me too much because I was a bad sight reader. I wasn't good. There's this practice. After 6 months, you can read anything, actually. If you're in a professional orchestra, or you can read. But I think that you have got to be at all times in a great position so your arms can work like they should, as if you're standing up. I really feel very strongly about that. And I always used to, even with great orchestra like New York, and I always would say, or if I saw somebody sitting back and scrubbing away, I couldn't deal with it because it was having a bad effect on everybody.
Yes.
So I would kind of not be nasty because that's not my, hopefully that's not my nature to be nasty, but I would say, sit up or something. Put your fiddle up. Hold your fiddle properly. And, you know, then you see all of these funny things in the Bruckner symphonies. Everybody got that tremolo on their knee. You know, they put the stick on their knee and they do, and can you imagine what damage that's doing to your bow arm?
And your spine?
Well, you know what, I think I didn't mean to do that, but you know, a tremolo I can do. So they do this, then they sit like this. But you know what, all you've got to do is work out a rhythm. So if you play, so your tremolo is down. So that actually those are triplets to me. So, but it looks like tremolo, and I'm not doing much damage. All of that other stuff, the shortcuts and everything, you know, and vibrate. You have to vibrate. Yeah. Unless you play in a Baroque orchestra. Unfortunately, I don't understand this period of playing, but fine, as long as everybody is doing it correctly. But I think that, you know, to vibrate in a beautiful melody as if it's your and you're blending and enjoying, it's not a question that you're taking second seat. You're making a contribution, all of you. I mean, I'm going to play exactly the same in the first chair as I'm going to play in the 18th chair. I would. I know I would.
And so tell me, you've worked with so many incredible people. You were great friends with Bernstein. Amazing. Gosh, if there's one composer I could have met, I would have loved to have met him. And how did the different composers conduct when they were conducting? How did they want different things from the orchestras? What was different about them, and how did you sort of get that message across to everybody, or did it just work? Were they that great?
Well, the great ones had got the most wonderful expressions, facial expressions, and they had got beautiful gestures. The ones that were very, very difficult to play for, however famous they were the jabbers, the sword fighters, the ones that went into battle. They were serious bad news to me.
Go on,
so
who are the sword fighters then, Rodney? Who are the ones?
Oh, my wife's sitting here with me and she's killing herself laughing because she knows I'm not going to name that particular one. But I think that you look at Lenny Bernstein and he closes his eyes and suddenly he start waving his arms around. His whole being, you just wanted to play. You just wanted to somehow inspire the sound, a different sound. Now, you go to extreme with somebody like Heiting. Now, I was Heiting's leader for 11.5 years with the LPO. We went at exactly the same time there. And he didn't have that ad-lib thing that Lenny had. Lenny could ad-lib all the time. Bernard was very, very strict with the score all the time, loud, soft, mezzo piano, etc., etc., etc. Rhythm. Very clear, very powerful personality. Orchestra always sounded very tight and very powerful with him. With Lenny, the orchestra was a different animal. With Giulini, it was a different animal. With Schulte, it was different.
What was Schulte like? Because you hear stories about him being terrified.
I loved him. I mean, I really worshipped him because I just thought his love for the score was just great. In fact, when I was invited to New York, my wife and myself, I told Schulte at the intermission of a rehearsal that I was going to go there, and he said, I can't talk to you now, you better come to my house. And I went to his house that night. He spent 2 hours telling me why not to go. What a rough place, what a rough orchestra, what a terrible, they tear your heart out, etc., etc. And he gave me every reason under the sun not to go there. And then as we were leaving, we had a nice dinner with them. When we were leaving, he says, now you must go there.
Oh,
that is absolutely true story. He says, you must accept.
So in your
and of course, he was right in many ways. He was right in many ways, of course. But all of those people, I mean, I had wonderful experiences early in my life. I played with Karl Schuricht. Now, Karl Schuricht had learned with Brahms. And already he was like 85 years old, and I was, I don't know, 22 or something. So when he started Brahms 4, he explained where the music in that opening was, because Brahms writes a quarter note and a half note. Da-dum, ba-dim, ba-dim, this. And he said Brahms couldn't write that down, how it should be. But in actual fact, all the music is in the rest, is in that quarter note rest. That's where the music is. So suddenly that note, that rest became so full of sound. It was just a continuous phrase. And I remember clearly telling Lenny about this, because this was like firsthand from Brahms.
Man himself, yes.
It was. And he just said, absolutely, it's so. He says, and I never can find that opening. He says, because of this rest. So there are wonderful things that we can learn from the orchestra. I mean, I played a lot of solo of concertos and so on. I mean, for example, if I tell you about another composer I worked a lot with, because I recorded the War Requiem with him, which was Benjamin Britten. And so I got to know him very well, and well, very well. I mean, I got to know him good enough to have, you know, he was great. But good enough for me to, I decided one summer that I would learn the Fiddle Concerto. And so I went and studied it with him a couple of times and got it firsthand. Because at that time, nobody played Britten Concerto. I'm talking about in the 60s.
And what was he like as a human? Was
Wonderful.
he quiet?
Gentle.
I always imagine he was
very gentle, softly spoken, very, very ordinary appearance. But because of what he produced as an artist, this whole, I don't know, his demeanor and everything was just, there was something wonderful. But when he would be calm and he would be dignified in whatever he asked for. And, you know, you had so much respect. He just adorable. Yeah. Great.
I have to ask, Rodney, do you ever feel starstruck, Rodney? Because, you know, all these people.
Once in my life I did.
When?
I tell you when that was. It was 1978, and we were it was the first appearance in a concerto for I think 12 years or 15 years, with Vladimir Horowitz. And we were in Carnegie Hall with, I don't know, you know the name, one of the students of Ormandy, Eugene Ormandy, who was conductor of Philadelphia. But he was conducting this concert, and of course Horowitz came in to play the concerto, and everybody, particularly the older members of the orchestra, the ones who had even played with Toscanini, they felt, thank God, we're going to hear a real pianist. And I must say, well, you know, we started with this thing, and the piano came in, I nearly fainted. It was so amazing. So amazing, so beautiful. More voice than any violinist I ever heard. Wow. Just wonderful. And so, you know, we have great experiences with the orchestras. And I don't, you know, you said I left the LSO. Well, I did leave the LSO because I thought it's time for me to do a year's practice and try and do a solo career or whatever. But it didn't work that way for me. But I feel richer for having done the orchestra. And I hope that all our students who think that there is only one discipline with the instrument, which is to play concertos, that there are lots of disciplines. There's, you know, you have wonderful literature with the trios, you have wonderful literature with the quartets, but you have the best literature with the orchestra. Sure. And that's real playing. You know, it's okay to say it's too soft, but what about when, you know, the brass are going mad? Then you've got to play as well.
Yeah. Well, Strauss does it for me. I just think, yeah. Strauss, that explains it all, really. You know, I mean, not, you know, few concertos are harder than playing Heldenleben, or, you know, even just like the second violin part to Rosenkavalier's got a fair bit in it, you know.
Absolutely.
Well, just before we carry on, I just wanted to say, please do feel to ask any questions to Rodney by going into our question and answer box. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little Q&A bit. Do pop them in there if you have any questions. So Rodney, I
hope this doesn't come out as if I'm name dropping, but that's those are the people that came to those orchestras. They had to go to some orchestra.
It's incredible when you were telling me all these people that, you know, part of the reason we've done this is because it's just so amazing to hear about the musicians that you've worked with, and you know, like a grandchild of Brahms, basically, right? I mean, you know, if you
not really, but I tell you that Karl did write me. I think because I was such young. I mean, I was really young, like our students, 21, 22, and he did write me a very, very beautiful letter when he went back to Austria, and I just thought it was so kind. And I think I've been looking for the last half century to find that letter, and I can't find it anywhere. I'm really sad, but my wife says it's typical.
Oh dear.
Of me. It's typical with everything. So.
So you also become great friends with Itzhak Perlman. I mean, you know, of all the violinists in the world, wow. Can you tell us how that friendship started?
Yeah, well, that started really because Itzhak is, you know, 2 or 3 years younger than me, and that started because of Jackie Dupre, and who I knew very well because before I went to the big orchestras, even whilst I was still a student, both of us played in Menuhin's orchestra, which was at that time called the Bath Festival Orchestra. And so, you know, I got to know Jackie when she was like 16 or 17. And when she got ill, I mean, I knew Itzhak very, very, very well. And there was a kind of close circle of friends. I got to know her very well. I knew Daniel very well because of the orchestras and because, you know, I'd been out with him a lot. But Itzhak was very, very close with Jackie. And because of that, we've kind of remained one big family ever since. Yeah. Oh. And it really is a family. Yeah. I mean, I've spoken to him twice this week. He's just as fed up as everybody else, but he's a good fiddler. I said, when are you going to play? And he said, oh, he said, I can't see that I'm going to be able to play for another, I don't know, year or something.
Oh, it's unbelievable, isn't it?
He cancelled everything.
Yeah.
He told me a funny thing that he had a concert in Florida and he had to play the Fiddle Concerto. And he said, and it was just at the beginning of this virus thing, and he cancelled. And Pinky Zuckerman went and I think did the concert, and then he came down with this virus. I mean, he's great, he's fine now, but he thinks he caught it there. Anyway, I said, you know, and I said, what notice did you give him? He said, I don't know, 24 hours. I said, my God, it's a good job you weren't playing Shostakovich. He said, no, he says, if it was Shostakovich, I wouldn't be going. You know, reached that point.
We've got some lovely questions coming in. One from Joshua Fisher. Hi, Joshua.
Hi, Josh.
He says, can Rodney remember any funny stories from his time as leader of these great orchestras? I know you have some. Tell us your best ones, Rodney. What was the funniest moment?
I do have a lot. It's hard always to think about stories or jokes, you know, off the top of, you know. Well, let me think of.
Have a little think.
How long can the story be?
Well, you know, 5 minutes.
No, wait. I can tell you a 5-minute story hopefully in 40 seconds.
Great. Go on then.
So we went to Walthamstow Town Hall to play a concert. This is LPO. And, you know, I don't know how many of us know what Walthamstow Town Hall is like, or any town hall. But we were the conductor that night was a guy called Antal Fistulari. I don't know whether that means, does it mean anything to you?
Sorry, I'm afraid not.
Fistulari was very, very, very famous at one time. Donkey's years before you were here. He was really bizarre. He was a crazy guy. And, you know, I mean, he did everything. It was strange, but he was kind of a serious artist. But he was definitely a bit off. We came to the concert, and he walked on the stage, and he came through the fiddles, you know, like on that side. So he came through the fiddles, and he gave a beat for the timpani. We all stood up and we played the Queen, and then we finished, and he starts going like this, like this. He says to me, he says, I forgot my glasses. I said, well, go and get them, because, you know, we're going to be here. I says, we're not going anywhere. We'll be here. Go and get your glasses. He said, okay. But instead of going off through the fiddles, he went off through the cellos and the violas. He went the wrong way. Now, I don't know whether you know that in those town halls and those English buildings, there's a bar that you push and the door opens. So I'm watching him go off there, and I was really, I think, a bad young lad at that time. I watched him going off, and I didn't stop him, or nobody did, because I was so amused. I thought, what is he going to do? He got to that door, he pushed the bar, and he was out in the street because the door closed.
No.
The door opened, and he walked out into the street, and of course it went bang, it closed. And he was done. He was out in the street, and we haven't seen him for 10 minutes. And so 10 minutes later, he's all ruffled and bedraggled, and he came wandering up the center aisle. And so that was a funny story. But when we were all practicing on stage, waiting for him. Nobody went to look for him.
Nobody stood up and said, I'll have a go at conducting. Tempting.
I'll tell you another story, little one, quickly. I came down from my room in Lincoln Center when Horowitz played a concert in Lincoln Center, again with Rap 3, and he was pacing up and down like a caged lion. And I says to him, hello, Mr. Horowitz, how are you? He says, I'm not nervous. I mean, he was dying. so it happens to the best.
It's good to know, isn't it? It's not just us.
Yeah, of course, everybody.
Lovely. A good question come in from Aaron Bladen. Hi, Aaron. What would your best advice for wanting to be an up-and-coming conductor? Any advice on how to lead an orchestra from an instrumentalist point of view?
For me?
From your point of view, any advice for an up-and-coming conductor?
Well, wait a minute, I have to think without being... You know what is the easiest thing in the world? The easiest thing in the world is to conduct the Berlin Philharmonic or the New York Philharmonic, because they really do know the literature and they sound really good. LSO, it sounds good. Don't start mucking around with them, particularly if you're not one of the greats, if you're still learning. If you're still learning, you will feel what that orchestra wants. You can't start talking to perhaps the greatest oboe player in the world as if you know better than him, or the first cellist as if you know better than him, because they can all do it. They can all play. All of them can play the Brahms symphonies, the Beethoven symphonies, the Mozart symphonies, the Tchaikovsky symphonies, the Stravinsky, everything. They know that literature. So for it to be good, all you got to do is stand there and deal with yourself, quite honestly. For it to be great, that is the dimension you've got to look for. And the ones that are really, really, really great that I experienced in all of those years, they're few and far between, to tell you the truth. So for them to ask a cello section to play in a certain way, they have got to understand what the possibilities are for them to do that. And they must know how far to take them without actually being even kind of dogmatic or offensive. You can't. So there is great respect on both sides. You have to think of the orchestra as one unit, as one functioning unit, and the conductor is there to really give, just to make everything as beautiful in the minds of 100 people as he possibly can. It's not about beating, because everybody, all those guys have got good, boys and girls, have got really hot techniques. They can do it. But so you can't start telling them how to play. Of course, if something out of tune, you have got to stop and you have to rehearse it. And it's very easy. In a good section or a cello section or whatever, or a wind section. I worked for 1 year with Boulez, and he used to spend 10 minutes tuning just the wind before the rehearsal started.
He had though, didn't he, Rodney, for picking out the one note in the middle of a 10-part note cluster, which was flat.
Scary. You could hear the worst, most avant-garde mess that you have ever witnessed, and he would know if there was a wrong note in there. And that's not an exaggeration. He knew the score, and B, he knew the orchestration. He knew who was a culprit. I mean, we only know by asking a section player if there's a mess and it doesn't get better. It's got to be one of us that's doing it wrong. There's got to be one of us who's messing up the section, and it's at that point that you have got to have the guts to say, you know what, I think the problem is there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm almost up for that, you know. I mean, I don't like it, but I'm almost up for it. So
it's interesting. We've had a question come in, which is sort of to do with this ish. It's from Alexander Casson. Hi, Alexander. He says, "Hello, Rodney. You mentioned playing the same." He said, "You mentioned playing the same in the first chair as if you were in the last chair.
Yes.
Always fascinating to hear various orchestral players' perspective on this, particularly leaders. In your experience in the multiple orchestras you've played in, who is in charge of the section's sound? Is there someone? Or is it something you found to be organic and unique to a specific orchestra? You've had quite a lot of experience, obviously, around the world. I mean, obviously the buck stops with you, but
yeah,
how does it happen?
I mean, because you really are the principal. I mean, there's the quartet. There is the leader. There's the principal second. There's the principal viola. There's principal cello, and that's the quartet of strings, really. And within that quartet comes all the bowings, whether it's on the string, whether it's a long bow, whether it's a flautando, whether it's sul tasto, whether you're into the string, whether you're at the point, whether you're at the heel. Now, when all of that comes together, those experienced people can read and feel exactly what is going on, and they know it, so it's catching. It spreads like wildfire. And so everybody doing the same thing. You don't have to stand up and show them, unless you want to say, listen, you know, this sound, then you've got to be prepared to stand up and say, perhaps we could do it a little bit with that sound or with that sound, which, of course, at that point, that's one of the jobs of the leader.
Yeah.
Perhaps. But I can give you a very good Stokowski story if you want.
Oh, yes, go on. Always want a Stokowski story.
Does anybody know who Stokowski is?
Well, we all know him because, well, I'm sure people...
Of Fantasia. Yeah, he's the guy who shook hands with Donald Duck, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
And a few other things.
Well, yeah, I can tell this story because I think he died like 60 years ago or 50 years ago or something. So I can tell this story. Hopefully, I don't say it in an offensive way. But he did actually. He came to conduct the. He came to record Schubert Unfinished and Schubert Great. And he was really, really nasty. He was like, you know, really unpleasant. And he had a thing, it was free bowing. So everybody could do their own bowings, which gave that, at that time, in his day, I mean, I never heard it, that's before my time even, but that great Philadelphia sound, that was to do with all of this kind of bowing in no bow changes. It's not like today, but he came and he was being a bit unpleasant, and he picked on one of the guys who was playing in the second violins, and obviously he didn't like his style, or he didn't like what he was doing. He spotted him, and he did say to him, "You, sir," because he spoke in a kind of Hungarian Polish accent, even though he was actually born in the East End. He was, and he said, "You, sir, please play this passage." And I was kind of a bit horrified because I thought that's not fair. That's not fair in you know. So I did say to him, I actually did say to him, this is a leader's job. So it's one of my little stories. I did say to him, Mr. Stokowski, so I said, I might have even said maestro, I'm not sure. It's a word I never really like to use, but remind me there's a good story and about maestro. I said, you can't ask him to do that. I said, you can't ask him to do that. I said, I said, I'm engaged to play the solos. He's not engaged to do that. And if you want to hear just one violin play, I said, I'm happy to do it for you. I said, but not him. And he wouldn't have it, actually. He really wouldn't have it. He said, no, him, not you, him. I said, no, 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 he's not going to do it. I said, I'll do it. He is not going to do it. And he said, him. And he kept saying that. And so I got so, well, I stood up, put my fiddle in my case, and I left out of the recording session. A bit not thinking, well, wait a minute, I'm taking money out of my colleagues. You know, what if they lose the recording? I didn't think really, well, but I was really upset. And at that time, you know, I was driving a fast car. I came out of where were we doing this? We were doing this in one of the town halls. I came out and I took down the first bollard that came in sight. I mean, I went flying across the road. I came home, and of course the LPO manager phoned me and said, "You've got to go back. What did you lose the recording contract?" I said, "No." I said, "I'm not going back." I said, "There's no way that I can deal with that." I said, "You have to do what you feel is right for the orchestra now. Get somebody else to do it, or fine, I'll go on my merry way." But I went back the following day because, you know, I thought I better be a good boy, and he didn't know even that the incident had occurred. I mean, because, you know, he was like 90 and he'd forgotten about it and everything. So I just sat down and did the session. But I think that, you know, I mean, it's a bit regarding the last question about how deal with the music. If you have got a wonderful concept of how you hear Mozart, because all interpreters are totally different. I mean, violinistically, I mean, if you listen to Jascha Heifetz play Brahms, and you listen to David Oistrakh play Brahms, or you listen to, I don't know, Vengerov or Anne-Sophie Mutter play Brahms, they're all different. They're all very, very different performances with a different sound, with a different tempi. So I don't think there is any hard and fast rule on how we should play. If the sound is beautiful, and if the rhythm is great, you're in business. You can do what you want. In my opinion, I found it with everybody I ever worked with. And it was always dancing, which is your rhythm, and singing, which is your tone, which is your voice. If you go through life singing and dancing, you have a great time. Honestly.
Lovely. We've got a question coming from Dana. This is more to do with auditions. So, hi, Dana. What advice would you give for someone approaching professional orchestral auditions? Now, so Dana, I believe, is you know, sort of coming to the end of her time at studying, and is about to go out in the big wide world. First of all, buy Rodney's books, I say, Dana. Violinist, Volume 1 and 2. But what else to get yourself ready to try and break into that world, Rodney? Piece of advice?
Sing and dance. Don't try to make what you think is an orchestral sound. That's coming. Those orchestral sounds are going to come. Don't, you know, the dynamic range is what you feel in your heart. It's not what you see in black and white on a piece of paper. It is what you feel in your heart. Study your pieces well, learn them thoroughly. Find good fingerings, find all the stuff that will enable you to just deliver how you feel about the music. And, you know, if you're on top of your pieces and you sing and dance, you're on your way. Absolutely. That's my experience of all hundreds and thousands of auditions. That's always the ones that make it. You don't have to play. Even you don't have to play the best Mozart concerto. You play how you feel it. If it sounds like Tchaikovsky, but it's beautiful, that's okay. We don't know how. I mean, Mozart had a piano that didn't have pedals, I think. I'm not sure. But he had a fiddle, definitely. My fiddle is a Baroque fiddle. I mean, it's not a Baroque, it's a Baroque made. But who knows what Mozart would have loved? Who knows? I listen to the operas of Don Giovanni and Figaro and so on, and I listen to Onegin and so on. I don't know, it's all wonderful.
Great.
The voices sing, the voices do. You listen to Don Giovanni singing. I'm sure that wasn't, he would, Mozart, I'm sure, would have loved a good Strad played by David Oistrakh. I'm sure he would have loved that sound. I think so, anyway.
We got another question from Isabella, who's asking, you should cast your mind back a little way to studying with the great Henrik Schering. What's the most memorable experience you had with him?
Funny story or a serious story?
Yeah, a little of both.
Okay. Well, the first time I played quite often. I played often with him the Bach double and Vivaldi double, and certainly if he was just coming as a just to play one of the big concertos, Tchaikovsky or something, we always used to play in the first half Bach or Vivaldi and of course, with the Bach concerto, he says to me, after the first time I played it with him, he said to me that practice your détaché. I said, really? I said, well, why? He said, because we're going to play this thing in all the different parts of the bow. So that your détaché is whatever speed at the point in the middle is with your wrist with a identical sound in every part of the bow. In every part, so you can play Bach double concerto, you can play it at the heel. It must sound exactly like when you play in the upper half. It's got to sound the same. So then your bow's fixed. And he was right.
Yeah. And
I did practice that actually, but I learned a lot from him. I was going to play Bach. He was playing with the Washington Orchestra, and I went there we were playing Brahms, no, not Brahms, we were playing Bach double concerto. And so he says, why don't you come to Washington? We'll have dinner and you can stay in the hotel. And so I went there because he could give me some good tips on fiddle play. I said, what are you playing tomorrow? He said, I'm playing Tchaikovsky. I said, really? I says, when did you play it last? He says, 2 months ago. I said, really? I said, well, you've been on tour. I said, when did you practice? He says, I'm going to practice now. I said, really? He said, yeah. So he took his fiddle up from his case again after we finished doing our bit with the Bach. And he played from beginning to end of the Tchaikovsky. And I don't know how long Tchaikovsky is, 38 minutes or something like that. Yeah. It took him 1 hour and 15 minutes. He played everything almost at half tempo. Dum, ba-da-dum, bum, 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 da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, with vibrato. There wasn't one note out of tune. I swear to God it's true. There wasn't one note out of tune or with a bad sound from beginning to end. Not one note. And then he put his fiddle in the case and unscrewed his bow. He says, come on, let's go and eat. I said, wait. Tell me, what was all that about? Why did you do that? What have you just done? I mean, I've witnessed it. I've seen it. I was sitting in the armchair. I mean, loving every moment of it. I mean, I never saw such a bow arm. I never saw such a bow. And the beautiful vibrato. Everything, every note was taken care of. And I said, I just needed to just make sure my intonation was good and that my memory was good. That was it. That was his practice. That was his practice.
However, don't try that at home, folks. I think maybe most of us.
Oh, I have done it hundreds of times since.
Have you?
I have, yes. So good to do. Even just to play just the notes the same length all the way through.
Sure, but not practicing it for 2 months before the concert though.
Oh no, I never did that.
Yeah, maybe not that.
I mean, I was practicing it 2 minutes before the concert. still trying to fix it.
Never too late.
But I can tell you a funny story about Sherry. Came to our house in America, and we had a really nice lunch, and then we were going to do a little bit of work, and he said, you know, I've got to have a sleep, because Cynthia, my wife, made a big dinner, and he drank wine, and big lunch, sorry. He said, I said, well, you know, if you go upstairs, there's plenty of room up there. You go in any room you want. So he says, no, he says, I'm going to go there, because we had a really nice sofa. So he fell asleep on the sofa. And of course, I'm dying to sort of work a bit and rehearse a little bit. And after about an hour and a quarter, still fast asleep. So I said to my little son at that time, who is now not such a little son, and I said to him, I think he was like 6 or 7 or something. I said to him, come, you see that guy who is sleeping on mommy's chair? I said, go and wake him up. So he started to prod him, and he didn't wake up. And so he thought, I'm going to really fix this. And he gave him such a kick. He really belted him one with his foot. And he woke up. Yeah. And this is what happened. He woke up, and he put his coat on, and he got his fiddle case, and he says, bye-bye. And that was it.
Oh, no.
That was it. Seriously. His car was waiting for him outside, but he's just got into his limousine and left. No rehearsing, no work, no nothing.
Oh my God.
Wonderful. Great. It's fine.
Oh, I love it.
It's fine. They're great people.
Oh. We've got a bit of a broader question coming here from somebody who hasn't given us their name, but that's okay. They're asking, do you think there are differences in the sounds between American, German and UK orchestras? And if so, what?
Yes. The difference is the character of the people. I don't know, you know, we're a little bit known to be a little bit stiff upper lip, but we're not actually. We're you know, there's American orchestra is it's a big mixture of everything. When I went to the New York Philharmonic in '75, it was a big mixture of everything there. There was lots of Italians in the orchestra, lots of Jewish violinists in the orchestra. I mean, that's being a Jewish violinist myself, I can say that. So, I mean, it's one of the things that actually saved me, because I mean, it was like, I knew that because of my mother, because they all came from the other side of, well, they all came from Ukraine. So I knew that they spoke that Yiddish language. And the New York Orchestra, or a lot of the men in there, had come the same way, because, you know, that already makes a certain mentality, because everybody's come from a different background with that kind of New York craziness, the chaos of New York and everything. Very strong. I mean, pound for pound, I would think that that was the, I'm talking about instrumentally, that might have been the best orchestra of all. No, not the discipline of the Berlin Philharmonic, so it probably didn't sound as good. And people used to really shake when they came there. I mean, I saw Tenstedt came there. Do you know this name, Tenstedt? Tenstedt came there, and he was shaking in his boots when he was. I could see him shaking. They were really, because those guys were a bit tough, but they were nice. But they were raw. So, you know, the English mentality is not that. So they're going to play differently. They're going to be much more perhaps tasteful even. They're going to be a little bit more elegant. The Viennese have got this tradition, so they have got to live up to that tradition. You know, you can only play Viennese music if you are us. Or Berlin Philharmonic, you know, they've got that tradition from Furtwängler down through Karajan and and I don't think so much Abado, but I think from Karajan there is so much still left. This was arguably the best orchestra, Berlin Philharmonic. It was.
It's official.
So they're different. They've got traditions. I think that I tell you when New York Orchestra was good was when Lenny Bernstein conducted it. That's when it was good. Because they were, you know, by the time he kind of kissed all his friends, it was like quarter of an hour before he got on the rostrum. Because he'd been at school with everybody. And yeah, he was, you know, his music was magic. I mean, I did a few first performances of his pieces. And of course, when we went on tour, it was a bit like going with one of the Beatles because they would just go crazy for him, particularly in the Far East. You know, we used to play at Encores pieces from the West Suite, the Suite from West Side Story, and On the Waterfront, and all that stuff. And you know, and he was quite, you know, he looked like a movie star. He was, and so that coupled with what he was as a musician. So perhaps I'm a bit biased, but no, I don't think so. Orchestra adored him.
We just had Leon. Hi, Leon. Just remind us to ask you. Tell us about this maestro story, then, says Leon. That you promised you'd mention.
It's a very sweet story, actually. I have to think of how it goes. It was when we were talking about Shorty, I think. So Shorty was knighted in the birthday honors or something, and he was wonderful, and he was kind, and he was just really, I really liked him so much. And the orchestral manager came out to congratulate Sir George, and in front of all the orchestra. And he came and says, you know, it was great because at that time he was principal guest conductor with Giulini and Daniel Barenboim of the LPO. Haitink was conductor. So it was really a terrific lineup that we had. It was so good, all the concerts. He, Mr. Bravington, who was chairman of that orchestra, said, you know, so I'd like to say how happy and how thrilled we are that, you know, Maestro has been knighted, and so now he is Sir George. And suddenly, Shorty became like, he became very humble and says, oh, Diaz, you can call me Maestro. So I thought we were all really very, yeah. Modesty.
Wonderful. Rodney, it's been so amazing to have you join us tonight. I can't thank you enough for giving us your time.
My pleasure.
Just one last question. It was rather a nice from Julia Klimek, who asks, what would you tell your younger self on graduation day? We have a lot of students listening to you here tonight. People who aren't sure what's going to be happening coming up in the next few years for them, and many professionals as well. If you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself?
That you must know and be absolutely honest with yourself. What are your finest ingredients, and what is your level? You must know what your level is. You know, if you think you're going to compete with, in my day, I mean, they were just finishing their careers. If you think you're going to compete with Milstein and Oistrakh and all of the people that I came to play with, very, very tough. Hardly anybody has got that level. So today you're going to compete with Itzhak and Zuckerman and Sophie Mutter. So to think that you're going to have a big solo career, even if you win a competition, you have to be absolutely honest with yourself and know if it doesn't go as you want it to do, there's got to be one of the ingredients. Can be confidence, can be sound, can be rhythm, can be intonation, can be memory, character, music making. If you're possessed with all of those ingredients, then go for it. But you must know if one of the ingredients is missing, it's going to be really tough. So then you've got to come to a different place. You know, you can go to quartets, or you can go to trios, or you can go to the orchestra, which is what most players do. Most do. But don't be disappointed with that, because you can have a really, really wonderful life, but you have got to know where you belong instrumentally and musically. And on top of that, you've got to think, you know what, if I do that particular area of music making, I'm going to love it, because we've got a long time in this profession. I know it at this end of my career. I know it well. It's a long time. It goes quick, so be careful. But know your level and respect your instrument. Respect, be nice and be kind. Very, very important, because everybody, you know, everybody wakes up sometimes with a headache, sometimes not with a headache, but you don't take these problems to work with you. And look after your playing at all times and be prepared. It doesn't matter. It can be, I don't know. I won't name the orchestras which are not the top level, but it's the same effort and it's the same energy that that deals with the Philharmonic Orchestra of Timbuktu, and there are many of them. It's the same attitude and the same input that applies to Philadelphia or Berlin Philharmonic. It's the same effort. You have to give everything, always. And when you're doing that job, if you want to move through the ranks into those strong positions, practice even more, and you can make it. You just got to wait. You have to wait.
Thank you so much, Rodney. It's been brilliant.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Brilliant to talk
Good.
to you.
Oh, have fun. Be well and safe in this stuff that's going around. But you can practice. Get on your exercise bikes. I'm trying.
Hope you're all keeping your practice up, guys, and thank you very much for joining us this evening.
All right. God bless you.
Bye.
Bye.